In the last video, we showed you how to record a drum set using a single microphone. This time, we'll be using two microphones. One way to do this is to use the classic overhead setup, which works well for acoustic recordings or jazz, for example. You can also feature the bass drum with its own mic, but you'll need to make do without one of the overheads, so you'll end up with one overhead mic and a bass drum mic. For the bass drum, we will start with the SM58, the vocal mic that we used for the first part of this workshop, and then switch to a true bass drum mic later on. When we tried single mic setups in the last video, we liked the shoulder position the best, especially with this condenser mic. However, the bass drum was a bit weak. To improve this, we'll try to use a Shure SM58 for the bass drum, which can work surprisingly well. There are three main positions that you can try and use as a starting point. On the outside near the resonant head, right at the hole, or on the inside of the drum near the batter head. All of them have distinct characteristics. Here, the sub-bass frequencies will be dominant. As you move the mic closer to the hole, and especially inside of the drum near the batter head, the kick portion will become more pronounced. This allows you to control the sound of the bass drum using the mic position. These examples were recorded with a microphone that was designed for an entirely different purpose. There are special bass drum microphones like the Shure Beta 52A, which have an optimized frequency response and emphasize the sub-bass and kick frequencies. Listen to it, it sounds completely different. When you're recording your own drums, try some different positions. You can use our examples as a starting point and then move the mics around. Just take your time and see what happens. The third position inside of the bass drum was our favorite. Now, let's combine it with our favorite from the first video, this large diaphragm condenser mic near my right shoulder. Here I have an AB setup consisting of two small diaphragm condenser mics with cardioid polar patterns. You can experiment with the distance between them. You can also vary the height or move the mics towards the front or back of the set. This configuration gives us a true stereo image, which we didn't get with the previous setup. This can also become a problem though, as the bass drum and snare drum will not be positioned right in the center of the stereo image using this setup, and the bass drum could be lacking some fundamentals. The last configuration we'd like to show you is called Recorderman. I'm using two small diaphragm condenser mics. One of them is centered above the snare drum. The other one is placed right about where we had the large diaphragm condenser mic before. The advantage of this setup is that you can get both the snare and the bass drum centered in the stereo image. You'll need something to measure the distances. I like to use a cable. Place one end in the center of the snare drum and measure the distance to the top mic. Then, take the other end down to the bass drum and hold it between the beater and the drum head by putting your foot on the bass drum pedal. Now you can use the cable to find a position for the other mic, where it is at the same distances from both the snare and the bass drum as the first mic. You don't need to be overly exact about this. It's enough if it is in the same ballpark. To finish off this video, let's compare all three of the configurations we tried.